everyone, it's Emily from Life So Savory, and today we're on part 2 of making my free crossbody bag pattern. Last week we made some really good progress with putting in some internal zipper pockets, and I'm super excited today to put on the outside pudgy pocket, I'm going to call it, because it's a fat pocket designed to be able to hold a little more stuff, if you want to say. Okay, so that's what we're going to be working on. I just realized I probably need to cut one piece. I forgot to cut, but first, let me comment on my awesome jumper that I'm wearing. This is also one of my free patterns. It's made from linen that is so soft and so comfortable, and this is just the coziest thing to wear on a chilly winter day. So if you haven't already checked out this, it comes in sizes, I think, extra small, extra large, loads of sizes for loads of people, and it is so comfy, and you should check it out. So let me grab my fabric because I just remembered I need to cut one more piece for the zipper facing before we sew that on. So say hi, let me know where you're from, what you're up to today, what are you working on, all that fun stuff, and we will get started here in just a second. This will really not take any time. I was going to do this before the show today and I forgot, so we'll just do it now. All right, so cut a little 1-inch strip. All right, so let me recap what we did last week. We sewed 2 internal pockets on the crossbody bag, so it's going to be an awesome little bag like this, and you can zip it open, zip it closed, and the same thing on the other side. These are 2 separate pieces right now. Zip it open, zip it closed. I'm really excited about this. Hi, Emily. Glad to have you on. Okay, so let's see. I like wearing it like this, which means we are going to be sewing and putting on the outside pocket. Oh, let me get rid of that. So the link to this free sewing pattern is on the ticker below. I'm going to take it off though because it's in the way. It's also in the description. So if you're not seeing it, it's in the description of this video. All right. So I'm going to take that off just because I want you to be able to see what's on my work table, and we'll get started. Okay. So today we are going to, on the front piece, which is sort of the direction you want this bag to hang, and I want this going up. So I don't really like to wear it on this side. So I'm going to wear it on this side. So we're going to take this piece. All right. And we are going to be sewing on this external pocket, okay, which I've already prepped, and the pocket flap, which is this one, which has a lining piece and a flap piece. Okay, so 2 pieces ready to be sewn on, and then let's see what else we have. We have the pocket side, which will be around the pocket. And you could always skip this if you don't want your pocket to be as pudgy, but I want mine to have a little bit of space. We're going to use the zipper. We're also going to use the zipper facing that I just cut to sew onto the zipper before we sew the zipper onto the side of the bag and all that good stuff. Okay, so all that, we're going to hopefully put this together. The first thing I'm going to do is install actually the magnetic piece. Okay, so this bag also has a magnetic snap, and I'm going to first sew that or put that into the lining piece so that when I sew this little pocket flap and then we turn it right side out, that the magnet is where it's supposed to be. So this is a double-sided magnet. Okay, so one side is here, one side is here. They snap together. Maybe if you take the protective plastic off. Okay, that should help. Oh, now they snap together and we have a great closure. Actually so strong that I can't even get it apart without the fabric to help me. Okay, so maybe that's why they had the protective plastic on there. Okay, got it apart. So the first thing, this is how the bag and the lining is going to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in this snap. So I want to line this up how it's going to be lined up. And then where are my tiny little scissors? Oh, here. Okay, so in the middle, hi Mary. Okay, in the middle of this, about 1 inch, so let's find the center. Find the center. And then about 1 inch up from the bottom, we are going to put this flap. And I'm just going to grab actually a little scrap of this fabric. This is what I have out to reinforce. Okay, just want to reinforce the backing on that. And since this is going to be the outside, then I know that that's what it would be. This is the bottom side. This is the top side. So just think through it all. Here's the center. I want to go up at least 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches, so that when I sew around this pocket, I don't run into this snap with my foot. That just makes it trickier. So I'm going to put this on the back side, which we'll see here actually in a minute, because we're going to sew this right sides together. And I'm going to clip 2 little slits. You want to make them the width of the little things on here. Hi, Danielle. All right. So clip the little holes. We want to cut it in both the outer and the lining, and sometimes it might be easier just to do that separate. Okay, so I'm just going to make it easier myself and do it separate. I'm doing this because the lining fabric is pretty thin. Now, on the other version, the lining fabric was a bit sturdier. So I don't know if I know I definitely did on the bottom vinyl. I'm not sure about on the top if I reinforced it. It's always a good idea to reinforce your magnetic snaps. It's never a bad idea. And especially if you're not sure about the fabric, go ahead and do that. So now you have these 2 metal prongs on the top, and you can probably muscle them down. You can also get a tool to help with this, but usually I just push hard and down they go. So now we have that magnetic snap. That's the back. Here's the front. Now we're ready to put right sides together. We're going to sew on the 3 sides, not on the top side, because that is what we will fold the seam allowances in, and then we'll sew that across as we attach it to the bag, but we're not going to do that quite yet. We're going to sew the pocket on first. Okay, so I will sew this together though when we head over to the machine in just a second. So let me put just a couple of clips, one on each side here. Okay, so there's the clips. Now let's talk about setting up the pocket so we can go over and sew that. So the first thing we're going to do is take our zipper, and let's see, this is my front, I want the zipper pull to be over here so I can do it over like that. So I'm going to sew the facing on this back side. So with right sides together, I'm going to put the facing on the zipper and just put a couple of clips. We're going to just sew this in place. This strip is longer because I didn't use the actual pattern piece. I just went ahead and cut a strip. But the pattern does include a pattern piece for it. I just didn't have it with me. Okay, so now that is clipped on. And then we will probably come back to put this together. And then we'll sew it to the pocket. So we'll just be back and forth between the sewing machine and here today as I'm trying to put things together. All right, so we're gonna keep that metal clip. Oh, I didn't put this backing on my snap. Guess I better do that. Now I have to see, can I muscle it back open? I think so. You can also use like closed scissors, something else to help pull it open so you don't pull off your nail. Okay, so now this will help. This little extra metal piece that comes with those. Push that back down. That will help it not rip out. All right, so we're gonna sew this. We're gonna sew this, and then we'll back over to do the next step. So let me go ahead and switch the camera over. I'm gonna put you nice and close today so you can really see what I'm doing. It takes a minute for this camera to turn on. Don't ask me why, but then it does. So, all right. So now you can see a close-up of what I'm going to be sewing here, and I'll show you what I'm doing. So the first thing is, like I said, we're going to sew the three sides, right sides are together on this. And for this one, I'm just going to use a narrow-ish 1/4. Well, you know what I need to do. I was just gathering, so my stitch length is long. So I'm going to go ahead and reset that back. Okay, and then you're going to pivot at the corners. Oops, this is the side I said I wasn't going to sew, so I guess I'm going to go back. I started on the wrong corner. Here's my magnetic snap right here. This is the bottom. I don't really need to sew the top because I'm going to sew that to the bag. So it's okay that I sewed part of it. We still have a big enough hole to turn. But what I really wanted to sew is the two sides and this bottom angled edge. And coming right now is the reason why I wanted to make sure this was far enough away, and that is so that when I'm sewing by, that you don't see, trying to get that a little bit clearer, that this foot does not interfere with this. So I think I can just go right by it. Yep. So, but if it was any closer, then it just would interfere. So we don't really need it closer, and that will help. All right, we're going to set this aside. We can now turn it right side out, but I'll set this aside for a moment, and we're going to sew the zipper facing on. So we have a zipper, we have a tab. We're going to go ahead and put on my zipper foot. Okay, and so I'm sewing on the right side of the fabric. The right side of the fabric is on with the right side of the zipper. We're going to sew all the way from zipper end to zipper end, attaching the zipper facing to the zipper. And this will be on the back side of that pocket, attaching to the bag. So we have a way to make it easier, so I don't have to sew the zipper directly to the bag. Now here, I'm going to run into this bump right here. So I'm going to go ahead and move this back on. Hi to those of you who are joining. We're sewing my free crossbody bag pattern. This is part 2. We started part 1 last week, which I linked in the description of this video. So if you didn't catch that and want to see how we put on the internal pockets, you can go ahead and check that out. But now we have this facing that is attached to the zipper. And before I go back to the table for the next step, I'm going to go ahead and just top stitch this. I like to change it to a length of 3. And we just pull the facing open, and then we're top stitching it back, stitching close to the edge of where that fabric joins the zipper. This will just hold everything in place and give that really nice finished touch that we want for our bag. Okay, so I'm gonna keep the zipper closed all the way till I get back here again. Now this is gonna interfere, so we raise the presser foot, pull it back. If any of you have tips on how to make metal zippers behave, as in not catch so much, I put like wax or was it chapstick on one of my other ones, but someone suggested soaking, which maybe I should do before I sew this whole bag. But look at how nice that looks now with the top stitched on there. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Sabi. I hope I'm saying that right. So there we are, ready for the next step. All right, let's switch back over. And we are going to do the next step. Okay, so we have this, So I'm going to first clip the corners on this pocket before we turn it right side out. Maybe I'll do this one. Remember, I accidentally sewed a little bit on the top. I wasn't going to. I was just going to fold it in and put it on, but I didn't. Okay, so poking that out, then the corners, you can use a pencil. I don't know. What do you guys like to use to poke out your corners? Something sharp and nice. Sometimes I use these little scissors. You just have to be careful not to actually poke through the fabric. So gently down the stream. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the rest of this top seam allowance in and clip it so I can go along, and actually I'm going to pin it because we'll be sewing it directly to the bag, and that will attach it to the bag and will close the seam allowance. Okay, so when we're just preparing this to set aside, because we're going to attach the pocket first. And then we'll have this ready to go. Oh, Debbie, what tool do you have? I've never, is it like, not a stylus, but is it one of those that you can also use to help like push things through the sewing machine? I've seen those little pointy tools that people use for in their sewing to help, like if something is stuck, rather than using your finger, which is not always smart. There's like this little tool. So if you have it, I have a picture or a link, share it so I can check it out. But there is our pocket ready to go on the bag. And actually, before I sew it on, I will top stitch around the other three sides just to make it lay really nice and flat. And again, give it that finished touch. Okay, so that's ready for that now. And then we are ready to sew the sides on the pocket. So here's my pocket. It's going to be fully sewn around. We're going to create a circle between this and this that will go around the bag. Now this should be the right size. Like when I sew this on and we put it around, but I'm just going to double check because I never know. Sometimes this zipper is maybe slightly different length than the other one. So I'm just going to pin this in place, and we're going to sew this right at the end of the zipper tab. So that's where I pinned it. And then I'm just going to go ahead and let's put a mark. Just do a measurement to make sure that this is all going to be where we want it to be around the bag and be the right size. Because then we're going to sew this on up. Perfect. Okay, so all right, all good. A precision turning tool. Oh, nice. All right, thanks, Debbie, for that tip. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew the edges of this together to create a circle Then we will come back and we will clip or pin this around the pocket. We're also gonna top stitch this, and then we'll be ready to sew it on to our bag. And here's the bag pouch. We're gonna have to make sure we move this out of the way so it's only sewn onto this side and not get the pocket needs to go over the back when it's done so that I can access both pockets on my bag, which I've been using and I love it. Okay, let's head back to the sewing machine and then we'll check this out. So here we go. All right, so let's first sew. I will sew these two ends to the zipper. Okay, so I am going to open this because again, this big bump gets in the way and that's really hard to sew over. But I can open it. I've already pinned it so that these pieces are going to stay where I want them to, and this will stay in place. But actually, just going to move it down just slightly. Let me do this again. Zip it up. Put this in place. Hold those edges together. Okay, pin it. Now we're going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to sew right where my pin is. Make sure you're never sewing over metal teeth. We talked about that last week. That is really, 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 really not good for your sewing machine. I don't know how many reallys I can put on there, but it needs to be so many because it's a bad idea. Okay. So there we go. That adds that nice dimension. We can zip it up now, ready to go. We're going to do just a little top stitch right here. Okay, and now we're ready to sew this to the other side. Again, we're going to line it up. I can feel where the bottom tab is of my zipper. I want to sew right under that, not on it. Now we've got a circle that we've made, and then we're going to open this up again, top stitch. Okay, and then you can see just how nice that looks when it's all top stitched and around on there. Okay, so really nice. We will set this to the side, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to top stitch around the edge of this bag, but I'm going to put on my other foot, which is just better for keeping the fabric in place. We'll start at one corner. Go down this short side, pivot, go down the angled edge. Sewing maybe an 1/8 inch from the edge. Here's my magnetic snap. Can I get by? Now we're getting a little bit closer to it because we've used up the seam allowance in the turning. So just had to sort of muscle it over. And then again, we're still going to leave that top just pinned so that we can go ahead and put that on and attach that to our bag. But you can see the top stitching on this side, it's teal, and on this side, it has just a gray color. Okay, so that is ready to go and should be get us one step closer. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is you're going to pin or clip the facing to the right side of the pocket so that we can attach that on there. So I'm going to try and just do it right here. Oh, I just unplugged my sewing machine and moving it. I was just going to try and have like one less camera switch. Of course, it probably would have just been easier to do it on the camera than move all that. But let's try to just use this little space right here to attach the zipper. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center of the top And this just allows me to center the zipper on that top of the bag. Then I'm going to find the center of the zipper, and we are pinning or clipping the zipper to the bag, not the facing. Okay, so the facing is going to get sewn to the back side. And then you're just going to work your way around. And on the corners, we just sort of lay it as flat as you can. Of course, it's quite easy to maneuver right now because it's not attached to anything else. When we do this the next time and we're sewing the corners to the bag, our flat piece, I think that's a little trickier. But this, you can kind of maneuver it around however you want. And now I'm going to work again from the other side. Okay, the corners are the trickiest part. This sort of larger pull tab, I just keep moving it around because it just keeps getting in the way. But we can just keep it out of the way, keep moving it as we see fit. All right, so just lining up and pinning around, and I'm out of clips. Okay, and then around the corners. So the last time I did this, I made it with a thick faux vinyl. And I will say, just in my initial working right now, it is way easier to, of course, work with this sort of twill than it was with the faux vinyl. It's very thick, and especially on these parts right here, where you're working with some curved parts, some curved corners, the vinyl is, of course, not very forgiving. So you just have to deal with it. And I had some puckers and some little smushed areas because I was just trying to make it work. So there. But now, this one, we have it pinned or clipped. However, I love clips for this because it's just so quick and easy. And we're going to sew the side to the pocket, okay? So I'm going to go back to my zipper foot. I'm going to scooch this back so you can see a little bit better. And then we're going to be ready to sew. Looks like I caught my thread in there. All right, so I'm going to start here on the zipper, okay? And I'm using at least a 1/4 inch, but I probably like to take a little bit more than a 1/4 inch just so I have a nice, healthy bite, or this is attached nicely to the fabric. So around the corners, you're just trying to get it to lay as nice as you can. Sorry. This machine is due for a service. That's a nice way to put it. It has some quirks. Okay, so you're just sewing it, keeping the zipper flat, trying to keep, of course, on these straightaways, it's super easy. Okay, that's not hard at all. It's when you get to the corners that you have to go a little bit slower. So here's that zipper tab. I'm going to lift and I'm going to pull it and get it out of the way. So now we can sew this zipper around the corner and not have the tab anywhere near getting in our way. If you need to pivot, go ahead and do that. If it's not working, to just go slowly. If the teeth are getting in the way, make sure you try to get those out of the way. Okay. And now, okay, so now I'm back onto fabric, which is going to be a million times easier. You could, at this point, go ahead and change back to your regular foot if you want it on your machine. I'm not going to, because this is working for me, but feel free to do what you, whatever you like when you're sewing, okay? Uh-oh, I feel like I'm out of bobbin, or the bobbin is stuck. Let's cut this. See how it was like pulling there? So let's see what's going on down here. Looks like I've got sort of two bobbin threads probably getting in the way. So I'm going to go ahead and empty this one. And then we're just going to do a quick bobbin fill. Okay. So that we stop and clip. Okay. Just filling up the bobbin. It's on top of my machine. Whoa, what is it doing? And then actually I might, when we get to the next step, I had around here somewhere, some teal thread. Might put that on, although that's actually, now that I look at it, not really a great match. So maybe we'll just stick with the gray. Okay. So now, hopefully that is smooth in there. And rethread the machine and show you the magic of this needle threader. Woo! Okay. So now let's find where I was. All right, I'm going to go back over, just back stitch and reinforce a little bit where I left off. Make sure that that's all in place. Okay, and sewing around the final curve. And back up the last straightaway to where we started. And it looks pretty fabulous. Okay, so you can see here how there's just some tiny little, I don't know, folds or puckers in the corner. I'm okay with that because it just helps everything to lay nicer when I do that. So that's how I leave it. But just so you know that that's normal. While I'm here, I am going to top stitch the seam allowance of what we just sewed to the main part of the bag. So I'm going to go ahead and switch the zipper to the other side so that I can go ahead and stitch this. Where do I want to start? Maybe I'll start over here. Okay, so we're just going to top stitch that seam allowance right down to the main part of the bag. And that just helps, one, reinforce this edge because now there's two seams holding it in place. And two, it helps the seam allowance to lay nicely on the inside of your bag. You could, of course, go ahead and finish this so that it's fully enclosed in bias tape if you wanted. But I did not do that on the bag I'm currently using, nor am I going to do it on this bag. And then up here when we're at the zipper, we're folding the zipper over so that we're top stitching that as well. And then both sides of the zipper will be top stitched and everything will just lay really nicely. A little back stitch. And there we go. Okay, so now we have the top stitching on there That helps that to lay really nicely. The edge of the bag, our zipper, which we want to zip nicely, and I need to, there's a thread in there. That's not going to help. But again, it wasn't perfect before, so I just need to figure out what can I do to make this smoother. Because I love this zipper. I love how it looks. And this is the cutest little zipper tab, but it is annoying that it doesn't slide very smooth. Okay, our final step for today is to attach this to the actual bag. So let me go, and the top. Let me go show you how I pin this on. We're actually going to use pins, not clips, and we will put this onto the bag, and then we'll sew our last seam and save the actual, like the most fun part for next week, which is adding the hardware and sewing the two parts of the bag together. But we'll save that for next time. Okay, so here we have the bag. Just make sure I can see. Okay. So here we have the bag. The pattern piece has a template to where you should place this pattern, but actually it's just sort of centered in the middle of the bag. But the first thing I'm going to do is move the inside pocket totally out of the way. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is clip the corners just slightly to get this to lay down better. Okay. We're actually going to fold under about 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 inch and then sew it on the bag. So I want these corners to fold over nicely and to lay down nicely. So I found that just giving a few clips helps relieve some of that tension and helps it to lay just a little bit nicer. Okay, so a few clips there, a few clips up here in the zipper facing part, which we're also going to fold under, but it's still on the curve. Okay, so now we're going to be folding that back and then pinning it in place. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this is not very fun to watch because it's kind of tedious, is just put it in place and start pinning. So as I fold under, I'm going to pin, and what I'm trying to do is start so that this bag is centered, and you also, what you want to do is try and pin it under the top pocket. We don't want to splay this out. We want to tuck it under, okay? So that's just a little bit to think about, but totally doable. Also, when we pin close to this other top zipper, we're going to leave about 1/2 inch, and that's where we're going to sew on the zipper flap or the pocket flap. Okay, I'm going to sew this way, so I'm going to make sure my pins are all pointing that way as well. But here we go. Okay, so the not very exciting pinning, making sure this pocket is totally out of the way. Come to our first corner. Now, last time when I pinned on my first bag, I got around and I realized I was totally splaying it out. So I'm going to try to make sure it's keeping tucked under. I am hoping that because this isn't a vinyl, it's a much thinner fabric, that will be easier to keep tucked under and pinned around. So I'm going to just work from both sides because I find that then I meet in the middle better and don't get off as far. And that's why we have the zipper, what do I call it, a liner or a placket, is so that we are not folding under the zipper to attach it to the bag. We actually have that extra fabric that we're using. And then like some places right here, it's a little bit thicker because I had the top stitching and the fold over, and that's where all the seams are connected. But okay, so there's the top clipped on. Kind of want to keep it shape so that hopefully we are pinning it in the right place and not sticking up. We also don't want to get too close to the edges because we're going to have to sew the two parts of the bag together. Okay, so we want to make sure we're leaving room around. I like to put quite a few pins around the corner parts because it just helps everything to stay together. Okay, we're going to go back to this side. And this. And I'm just working my way around. Really not that exciting. So this is where it gets a little tricky, is if you think, oh, it's not really going to lay exactly where I want it to. And I think I cut in a little too far here. So I'm actually going to pull it up. This takes a minute. This would probably be a good thing. I should have like stopped and come back next week, and then magically, voila, it was pinned on. However, but then you wouldn't get to see this, and I really did want this to be like a full sort of sew along so that someone could follow this to assemble this bag. So hopefully, even seeing the boring parts like this is helpful in seeing how it goes together. It's a complete sewing tutorial for this bag, but again, maybe not that exciting. Okay, so down here on the bottom, going around the corners, you're again just trying to smooth it as much as you can. Maybe there's a few puckers at the corner. It's really up to you to think about how you want to shape it. But just play with it and the positioning and all that good stuff. So loads and loads of pins. Okay, we're almost around here. Well, that's a needle. Loads and loads of pins, but this is maybe 20 times easier than doing it in vinyl. The vinyl turned out super cute, but it is not always easy to work with. So then you're just going to check that this pocket is indeed, okay, puffy and on there. Whew. Okay, so it's going to look awesome when it's done, but there's the puffy pocket sewn in place, or not pinned in place. So we're going to go ahead and sew it around. Then I'll sew on that top flap pocket, and then I'll show you how awesome it looks. And then next week, we'll put it all together and add the hardware and the strap, and you will love it because I said so. Okay, so let's one more time head back to the sewing machine and put this in place. So I am going to leave the zipper foot on. I think it makes it just a little bit easier to sew, but I do need to switch it back over. All right, so we're making sure we keep that pocket flap pulled totally out of the way. And that does make it a little bit tricky when we're up here sewing. That's okay. We can keep it. I'm going to grab my pin case. All right, so we are sewing close-ish to the edge where we folded under that seam allowance, but not too close, maybe 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch to attach this pocket to the bag. And I left that little bit of room between the two zippers, and that is to attach the flap, which we'll do in a moment. Okay, so when I get to the corners, I just like to kind of use my hand and squish them down so that I can sew around and then get on. So then when you get to the flat part, just sort of move. You're just keeping this pocket out of the way, as well as we've hopefully kept the back pocket out of the way. And so remove pins, so remove pins, repeat 25 times till you get all the way around. More than 25. I'm sure I have like 40 pins in here. I don't know if it's, the bobbin doesn't seem like it's threaded right, or the tension is weird. Something doesn't seem, since I rethreaded it, doesn't maybe seem quite right. So I might have to check on that. Okay, so we're back around. The zipper corners are of course the hardest because they are the bulkiest, but we are so close to back around. I can keep it out of the way. Oh yeah, something is definitely weird with this stitching. I'll probably have to re-sew that on. Okay, let me rethread this because something's not right with, I'm guessing the bobbin tension, but I'm going to rethread both just to make sure. So Debbie, when I'm doing that, I like to do the pins better than the clips because I'm not clipping it really to the edge of the fabric. I'm clipping it kind of in the middle. And it's hard to put clips this far in. So you can see here's the edge and here's where I needed the clips or the pins. And so that's really, really tricky for pinning. I will have to re-sew that because that something got, I feel like, really weird with the tension, and I do not want my bag coming apart at all. Okay, look at how cute that pocket is, but I don't want it coming apart. Okay, so I will re-stitch around there. But now that it's rethreaded, let's again, I'm pulling that pocket all the way out of the way, and we're going to position this in place. Okay, so you want to center this over the pocket, and we're going to sew it in that little space that we left. So between the two zippers. Okay, so just below the top zipper and just above the other one. This will also close the seam allowance. So now we got to keep both sides out of the way. So we left a nice gap there. Okay, so now this zipper or this pocket can totally go back down. We still have our top working pocket. Going to be filled with all sides of good stuff. And then we have this top flap, which we need to put on the magnet here, but we will in a moment. And then we also have this pocket here, this nice big pocket for storing all kinds of good things. So, whew, there we go. We are going to add the second magnetic clip, and then we're going to be finished for today's part 2. So let's just head back and add that on. All right, so magnetic clip number 2. Again, I'm just going to grab another piece of fabric to reinforce. Got my pieces, have my bag here. Okay, so I'm gonna just let this fall sort of where it wants to fall. And then I'm going to mark that spot with a pin, which is over here. Okay, then we open up our little zipper pocket, and that is where we're going to place the second part in the magnetic clip. So I'm going to clip on this side. Then I'm going to do the same on my extra piece to reinforce. Then I'll take this little magnet-y guy, push it through the front, put on my extra reinforcement on the back, take this metal piece that I forgot last time, and then I put it on the hard surface so I can press it down. Kind of hurts just a little bit. Okay, but there is then, it's so easy. I love those things. Then we have that, and it can clasp. Okay, so look at how this is coming together. It is looking awesome. And we have a pocket and a pocket and a pocket, another pocket on the back that we put together. And that is part 2. Whew. Okay, so it is coming along, looking great. Let's give you a little close up here. This bag is definitely softer and not as stiff as the last one that I was making, but is looking good. So clip, open, zip. Here's that big bag, or that big pocket we just sewed. And then this just drops down, and the whole thing drops to the ground and is on there. So coming along swimmingly. Love it. Okay, so that is, oh, it's not easy. I'm like sweating here, Debbie. But that is part 2. Next week, we will put this together with the back. Okay, sew those together, turn it right side out, and then add the straps and the D-rings and the hooks and all that good stuff that we have to go to finally finish this bag. And I'm actually really looking forward to having this second option of a bag to use as well. I think it's going to be really, really great. So thank you for joining me. I will see you hopefully next week. And if you love this, share it to your page, or like it on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, so that you can come back. Make sure you follow and subscribe so that you get alerts when I go live again. See you next time. Bye.